Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day. This right here is your neighborhood sensei Fouché. And I am strongly suggesting, because a lot of folks, you don't like being told what to do, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to tell you what to do. So again, I am going to strongly implore for all of you to stay woke or wake up. But in the process, there's no need to get all stressed out. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between being extremely passionate and being all stressed out and, very venting, angry. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you relax. Take any meditative steps and procedures. Be in any kind of calming or soothing environment. You know what I'm saying? That eliminates any kind of distraction that gives you high levels of anxiety. In the process, make sure you're always prepared to take those notes. You know what I'm saying? You know how we do right here. Stay woke. You know what I'm saying? We all about taking those notes and research. Because I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You know what I'm saying? This is just basically having a conversation. And then I'm just sharing a lot of read, documented information, you know what I'm saying, from individuals that have a high degree of experience. And they write about it, you know what I'm saying? And then I have read it, not once, not twice, not 3 times. All of these novels that I am sharing, I have read or have also listened to in the audio book version 5-6 times. You know what I'm saying? And I have itemized through all of these books in order to keep notation in order, so that way I am able to be most consistent in the process of not losing a train of thought. You know what I'm saying? So to itemize through these books by highlighting a lot of sections keeps me in the agreement of the topic. Because all this stuff is deep, you know what I'm saying? So I have to be able to stay focused on topic, and these books are extremely deep. And this is just an introduction into where we are going to go further. The reason why it's so important to drop these books for me first is because it gives you a specific insight into the research in its itemized specifics that I have embraced. You know what I'm saying? And it's not 100% of every single thing that I have read in every one of these books that I'm sharing. It is specific references that I have related to in many different experiences in my middle-aged life, and the longevity towards where I'm at now. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, there could be other shows and conversations into the specifics of my experience of knowledge, not only through books, but also through specific urban situations by choice and lifestyle. So before we move forward, let me start to honor sponsors. And the first mention is going to be Opus Clips. Simply said, it'll clip it up. If you have extended video recordings and conversation that I have, or whatever you're into in the form of information, entertainment, or education, and you would like to have shortened versions or many shortened varieties of this extended recording, then look up Opus Clips and go through the free trial. And if you agree, such as I have, then actually pay for your subscription. And you would have more options available to personalize how your clip drops. So moving forward, if you hear the music in the background, all of that is provided by Nasty Noise Music Productions. N.N.M.P. is the acronym. Mr. J.F. Winter is the producer and composer of Nasty Noise Music Productions. Go to the homepage and click into the external links, and you will find options to the links of the sites for not only Nasty Noise Music Productions, but also the optional sites of where you could follow Mr. Sensei Fouché. You know what I'm saying? So we just dropped that, and that's how that is. The book that I have been itemizing through at the moment, and I am not going to forget in this video to mention the author, is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. Again, Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. Lindsay C. Gibson. How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. If you grew up, again, was your parent difficult, immature, or emotionally unavailable? If you grew up with an emotionally immature, unavailable, or selfish parent, you may have lingering feelings of anger, loneliness, betrayal, or abandonment. You may recall your childhood as a time when your emotional needs were not met, when your feelings were dismissed, or when you took on adult levels of responsibility in an effort to compensate for your parents' behavior. These wounds can be healed, and you can move forward in your life. So, Mr. Sensei Fouché, what really got you into this book, and what made you want to read and share this with us and with yourself first and foremost? I'm a parent. I am also the child of my parents. And in my recollections, in my discussions with my main sibling, my sister, I have one sister that I grew up with and another sister that grew up somewhere else. You know, her mom is different than my mom. We don't have the same mother. When I speak with my sister about our childhood, and there's a delusion by our parents in the reality of how their immature nature affected us, going into our adulthood, and even to the degree of me being in a guardian position, or even now a parent primarily, you know what I'm saying? I remember how hurt I was. And even more than that, my daughter started going through the succession of moving forward in her life. And I'm not going to get into some specific personals right now, but there were some psychological things that I knew were going on because I was speaking the same tones and going through the same things at her age. You know what I'm saying? And pardon me for a second, I'm not going to be overly distracted into getting off topic at all. But one thing that she mentioned specifically, and I was out of her life for 5 years because of a lot of the generic dumb things that I chose to go through and be, and that caused for me to lose extended time out of her life. And the word that she mentioned that made so much sense and clicked was abandonment. She said that I abandoned her. And she was right. I couldn't even be mad. Like, it was like a total wake up moment. Stay woke again. Because I could have stayed asleep and blamed everything else. Blamed her mom, blamed everybody else for the fact that she was distressed and not take accountability myself. And the minute she mentioned the word abandonment, bam, I woke up. Wake up. And through that awakening was the process that began a more extreme assertiveness to my specific choice learning. So when I saw this book in the bookstore, just randomly going to the bookstore and just seeing different options of what was available, or just being in a book section, because I believe I was over at Target, and I always go to the book section over to that wellness and health section. And when I saw this title, I was like, whoa. So I started to skim through it a little bit, and I definitely decided to purchase it and read it. You know what I'm saying? Which I did. And then I looked it up in audiobook and found the audiobook, and then was listening to it while I was doing my delivery orders driving. Because, music to me, I don't need none of that. You know what I'm saying? Because I need to focus on what I need to know, not just going in circles on, everything I already knew, but really doesn't serve me too well into being more mature into my emotional processing. So, before we start to get into too much of a beginning ramble, let's start to go into our reading discussion. And if I'm correct, I am going to go back a specific topic within chapter title before we finish through the rest of the information. So let's begin. Emotional loneliness transcends gender. Although women still outnumber men in seeking psychotherapy, many men have faced the same issue of feeling lonely in their primary relationship. It's even more poignant for them because our culture maintains that males have fewer emotional needs. But taking a look at the rates of suicide and violence reveals that this isn't true. Men are more likely to become violent or succeed at suicide when they feel emotionally anguished. Men who lack emotional intimacy, a sense of belonging, or caring attention can feel as empty as anybody else, though they may resist showing it. Why? Because in the society, men showing their emotions for a long time in this misunderstanding within common culture is not agreeable. You know what I'm saying? They say that boys aren't supposed to cry. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just supposed to hold that in and fester that and don't go through the process of releasing that feeling and that pain. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is abuse. That is psychological abuse. Emotional connection is a basic human need regardless of gender. Children who feel they cannot engage their parents emotionally often try to strengthen their connection by playing whatever roles they believe their parents want them to. Although this may win them some fleeting approval, it doesn't yield genuine emotional closeness. Emotionally disconnected parents don't suddenly develop a capacity for empathy just because a child does something to please them. These parents are so immature that they are going to continue to get into their selfish indulgences and dismiss their children crying for their attention. And then eventually the children are going to rear off on their own and go through their own pain experiences trying to heal the emotional disconnection of your relationship. And then you get into this cycle of emotional immaturity and not learning how to maturely process and embrace your feelings. People who lacked emotional engagement in childhood, men and women alike, often can't believe that someone would want to have a relationship with them just because of who they are. They believe that if they want closeness, they must play a role that always puts the other person first. You know what I'm saying? Again, these children, they're going to try to beg for your attention through your emotional immaturity and the way you deal with relationships. And when they are exhausted from trying to overproduce themselves to compensate for your emotional lack and neglect, they will begin to reject you. And they will entertain, along with other immature peers, into mischievous searching in order to feel accepted. Hate is a normal and involuntary reaction when somebody tries to control you for no good reason. It signals that the person is extinguishing your emotional life force by getting his or her needs met at your expense. Basically using you, just a sponge, you know what I'm saying? An emotional sponge. They're just going to suck you up emotionally for whatever they need without thinking about your needs as well. It isn't only in romantic relationships that people may feel deep emotional loneliness. Their unhappy adult relationships are played out with parents or friends. Typically, their relationships with their parents are so draining that they don't have the emotional energy to pursue romantic relationships, nor do they want to. They're so damaged that they look at other failures and their own failures as just an ever existing failure. So they're always negative, you know what I'm saying, about how they view relationships, like there is no hope or there are no possibilities of having a healthy relationship. Their experiences with their parents have taught them that their relationships mean feeling abandoned and burdened at the same time. To these people, relationships feel like traps. They already have their hands full with a parent who acts like he or she owns them. You know what I'm saying? Control. And then they have this resentment. And that resentment, is residual and leaks into these other relationships as well. Because since you don't have any control over yourself and your primary pain relationship, then those factors and emotional insecurities are going to fall into these other relationships as well. Emotionally immature parents don't know how to validate their child's feelings and instincts because they're just too immature. Like they're so self-absorbed that it doesn't even compute about how someone else would feel because they're just too into how they feel. And how you react according to how you feel because of what they did. Without this validation, children learn to give in to what others seem sure about. As adults, they may deny their instincts to the point where they acquiesce to relationships they don't really want. They may then believe it's up to them to make the relationship work. If it were normal to struggle daily to get along with your mate, let me hold up a second because I kind of highlighted through something and it wasn't a complete sentence. Basically, in a summary, the sentence is basically going to read that it's a normal struggle to get along with someone else because of these other relationships that haven't been healed. So while the effort is needed to maintain communication and connection in a relationship, it shouldn't feel like constant, unrewarding work. The relationship you had in your childhood was a struggle and seemed like a lot of hard work. And then it carries over into these other relationships in your adult life. And you accept and believe that all of these relationships in general are just supposed to be a struggle, and that's not true. Relationships should be smooth. There should be an easy process and progression in the exchange of communication. The truth is, if both partners fit each other, understand each other's feelings, and are positive and supportive, relationships are primarily pleasurable, not arduous. As a human being, you can trust yourself to know when you're emotionally satisfied. You know when you've been given full measure. You aren't a bottomless pit of ceaseless demands. You can trust the inner prompts that tell you when something is missing. But if you've been trained to discount your feelings, you'll feel guilty for complaining if everything looks okay on the outside. If you have a place to live, a regular paycheck, enough food, and a partner or friends, conventional wisdom says, how bad can it be? So basically, that type of person is operating on a thought process of complacency. Like, even though I'm not happy, like, how bad can it be? Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. So, I guess this is what I'm supposed to go through. And then you accept that and embrace that continuous pain. And when you do that, then you wind up creating addictive patterns and addictive or abusing, both addictive and abusing behaviors behind it towards others, after primarily abusing yourself through addictions, through different forms of addiction. Many people can readily enumerate all the reasons why they should be satisfied and be shy about admitting that they aren't, being dismissive about what you're going through. It's easy to say, oh, I'm all right. And you know that you're not. They blame themselves for not having the right feelings. You know what I'm saying? It's your fault. You know what I'm saying? Because, because of your dissatisfaction and someone else dealing with your dissatisfaction within yourself, then you blame yourself, and through blaming yourself, you act out towards others because of the strongest resentment you have for yourself primarily. And then you go through these addictive behaviors behind your insecurity. Relationships are sustained by the pleasure of emotional intimacy, the feeling that someone is interested in taking the time to really listen and understand your experience. If you don't have that, your relationship won't thrive. Mutual emotional responsiveness is the single most essential ingredient of human relationships. When people can no longer tolerate an emotionally unrewarding relationship, how should we characterize their desire to leave? Are they being selfish, impulsive, or hard-hearted? Are they giving up prematurely? Or perhaps being just plain immoral? If they've taken it all the time, why can't they take it a little bit more? Why rock the boat? Trying to convince yourself or someone else that is dealing with your insecurity and blaming them of why they're no longer interested. It's their fault for not sticking it through, for not dealing with your insecurity and your lack of assertiveness towards healing. And then you become resentful to them for not wanting to deal and be miserable along with you. The point might exactly be that they have taken it for so long. Perhaps they've literally used up all the energy they had to give. Like they just believed in you, believed in you, believed in you, believed in you. It's like the little boy that cried wolf. That's an old story where you keep on saying, "Oh, I want to feel right, and if this happens, then I'll feel happy, and if you do this, then I'll be happy." And you're just never happy just because you're not even happy with yourself at all. You are so disappointed in who you are and how you deal with your feelings that it becomes unbearable to others in how you live your existence in close proximity along with them. When parents reject or emotionally neglect their children, these children often grow up to expect the same from other people. They lack confidence that others could be interested in them. Instead of asking for what they want, their low self-confidence makes them shy and conflicted about seeking attention. They're convinced they would be bothering others if they tried to make their needs known. They're so introverted that they feel ashamed in being accepted. And that is another uncomfortable thing for the opposite person to deal with that has a very strong center and emotional connection within themselves in dealing with someone else that is disconnected. Like that connection line is gonna start to become more and more staticky. Unfortunately, by expecting past rejection to repeat itself, these children end up stifling themselves and promoting more emotional loneliness. In this situation, people create their own emotional loneliness by hanging back instead of interacting. So again, let's go back to the reading before. When parents reject or emotionally neglect their children, these children often grow up to expect the same from other people. They lack confidence that others could be interested in them. Instead of asking for what they want, their low self-confidence makes them shy and conflicted about seeking attention. They're convinced they will be bothering others if they try to make their needs known. Unfortunately, by expecting past rejection to repeat itself, these children end up stifling themselves and promoting more emotional loneliness. In this situation, people create their own emotional loneliness by hanging back instead of interacting. My sister, and this isn't trying to, demean her at all. This is just honesty. That's how I know about this. My sister that I grew up with, living with, this is her. That's how I relate to this. This is exactly who she was in that specific reference growing up. She was so shy and so uncomfortable in her own skin that even when people wanted to befriend her, she would let them feel a certain way for them to believe that she wasn't worthy of their friendship. And eventually they would reject her because of what she already expected for them to do. By her encouraging them into why they should reject her, they eventually wound up rejecting her. You know what I'm saying? And then she was even more depressed about not having friends, but when she had the availability to have these friends, she already gave them a very self-rejecting image and an excuse of why they can reject her if they ever chose to. Parental rejection doesn't always result in low self-confidence. Some intelligent, resilient people somehow manifest the confidence to pursue good. All right, let's go back because I kind of stumbled on trying to turn the page. Parental rejection doesn't always result in low self-confidence. Some intelligent, resilient people somehow manifest the confidence to pursue good careers and reach high levels of achievement. Many find emotionally mature partners, enjoy satisfying long-term relationships, and create close families of their own. But despite their emotional needs being met in current relationships, the lingering trauma of childhood loneliness may haunt them, in other ways. Anxiety, depression, or bad dreams. It'll never escape unless you emotionally heal and deal with it. You know what I'm saying? It's always going to stick around. So in summary, in reading of our first chapter, which is titled, again, let's go, How Emotionally Immature Parents Affect Their Adult Children's Lives. A lack of emotional intimacy creates emotional loneliness in both children and adults. Attentive and reliable emotional relationships are the basis of a child's sense of security. Unfortunately, emotionally immature parents are usually too uncomfortable with closeness to give their children the deep emotional connection they need. The parents are so self-absorbed into their lack of giving, or self-absorbed into their addictive necessities, that their ignorance will create a gap in the closest or any existing relationship in their life. Parental neglect and rejection in childhood can adversely affect self-confidence in relationships in adulthood, as people repeat old, frustrating patterns and then blame themselves for not being happy. Even adult success doesn't completely erase the effects of parental disconnection earlier in life. And a lot of times these folks wind up getting divorced because of the lack or the pressure they put in their current relationships and marriages. Understanding how your parents' emotional immaturity has affected you is the best way to avoid repeating the past in your adult relationships. And this is just a beginning into further reading and empathetic connections. You know what I'm saying? The more that I read this information, you will connect and understand these feelings, because we all go through them. You know what I'm saying? Again, none of us are Tom Hanks' character in the movie Castaway talking to a volleyball on a remote island that is hard to find, or hard to find someone being stranded on. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many people that go through this same thing, and that's why I choose to have these type of discussions first before we go into random conversations on common everyday feelings and topics. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to give a shout out to Packboy on Round the Clock Thinkers, because that is specifically what his platform is catered to right now, is on his peer level the questions that he and they would ask themselves into their own interrelation of understanding. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I want to go through the deep, educated specifics in definition. You know what I'm saying? This is important for me to share with you because all of these thoughts that I would share and have into how I think and move is within all of these doctrines. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm sharing all of these first. This is going to be the most intense and boring discussions if you feel that way. But trust me, it's very important. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it as boring at all. It is important. I could talk about Puff Daddy. I could talk about President Trump. I mean, that is exhausting, frustrating, and all of that is important. Don't get me wrong. To understand all of these psychological ways of thinking and processing would define all of these situations and these characters that are within our everyday lives. It will describe your Donald John Trump. It will describe your Sean Combs. It will describe your Vladimir Putin. It would describe whoever has drama or has a quiet calm and comfortableness. When you understand the processing, the immaturity, and the factor towards evolution beyond the immaturity, channeling specifically to a mature state of being. And I am honored to share all of this information with all of you. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully I'm relatable. You know what I'm saying? And what I am going to be is straightforward. You know, and if I didn't know what I was reading, then I wouldn't share it. And I want to be as specific and to the point as I can, as far as being educated and informative and deeply informative, with a deeper perspective into education and the utilization in definitions and the different synonyms and variety in words and explanations that connect to these feelings. Call it word salad if you want. Usually word salad is related to how someone with a lack of connection with words and the definition of these words and how they are synonymous into different relations and explanations into given topics. That's how, you know, certain individuals become confused, is because a lot of this verbiage is way beyond their limited thinking, you know what I'm saying, or their short attention span, because this is a short attention span based world that we're living in. You know what I'm saying? To sit down and deeply process and meditate informative and deep information, or be deep within, is extremely difficult in this day and age of fast thinking, fast movement. You know what I'm saying? There's no long haul. It's a quick trip. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's looking for a quickie when it comes to, a certain relation. If we was to talk about intimacy, you know what I'm saying? Everything in life right now is a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, when it comes to thinking and processing, as opposed to making deep love into your feelings and your emotions, and how to relate those emotions with others, being in deep love with sharing that relation, instead of a quickie, a wham bam thank you ma'am. You know what I'm saying? 2 minute brother, 2 minute sister, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? They in and out. They ain't got no time for depth. All they are is just a quickie. You know what I'm saying? A fast pickup. Unhealthy living. You know what I'm saying? Got me thinking about fast food restaurants instead of fine dining. You know what I'm saying? You want to be in and out. You know what I'm saying? A quickie. You know what I'm saying? They process it quick. They serve it out quick. You know what I'm saying? You eat it quick, and then you get sick quick. But anyway, let's end it on that, because I could start ranting into these different expressions of feelings when it comes to individuals being dismissive into their deeper processing and elevated thinking. You know what I'm saying? So tomorrow's another day, and we're pretty much doing these episodes weekly. You know what I'm saying? And eventually we're going to roll into random conversations within these weekly drops for this deeply shared novels and itemization. Again, you know what I'm saying? So this is your neighborhood Sensei Fouché, and I am strongly suggesting, because everyone does not like being told what to do. So again, I will strongly implore for all of you to stay woke, or wake up, but never be all stressed out, because if you're overstressed, that means something ain't right, and you need to figure out how to take the proper processing and meditative steps and being in proper environment of peace and relaxation. So that way you're able to breathe and be ready to take some notes. Be smooth, be in unity. One.